Dr. Felix Klein was known around the university for his wild theories about parallel universes. Most of his colleagues dismissed him as the eccentric guy in the corner office, hair perpetually askew, armed with a whiteboard covered in doodles of timelines and alternate realities. But today, as he stood before an audience of eye-rolling students, he was determined to deliver the most outrageous lecture of his life: why your ex might actually exist in another dimension. Picture this, he began, pacing energetically. You're sitting at home, scrolling through social media, and suddenly you see a post from your ex. You think, what are the odds? But in another universe, maybe she's a successful dog groomer living in a mansion with a 10-pound poodle named Fluffernutter. Laughter erupted. Felix's quirky humor was his secret weapon, just as Felix launched into a tale about how his alternate self was also a rock star who only sang about astrophysics. The air in the lecture hall shimmered. An unusual energy pulse rippled through the room, and a crackling sound echoed off the walls. The overhead lights flickered, and Felix's cat, Mr. Whiskers, who had been napping on the desk, suddenly sat up and spoke in a deep British accent. What's all this then? The audience erupted into chaos. Students began swapping seats and bodies as if a cosmic game of musical chairs had gone terribly wrong. Felix blinked, half convinced he'd lost his mind. Folks? This isn't part of the presentation. He ducked as a nearby student transformed into an anthropomorphic banana, yelling, I always knew I was fruity. Felix's heart raced. This was no joke. Dimensional collisions were the stuff of his wildest dreams and most paranoid nightmares. He had read about them, theorized about them, but never had he expected to experience one. He frantically grabbed his notes, trying to regain control. All right, everyone. Just breathe. I'm sure we can, Dr. Klein, shouted his colleague, Dr. Rachel Hargrove, bursting through the door. This is bad. The collision is merging our universe with another. We have to stop it. Felix swallowed hard. How? Rachel thrust a paper at him. The Nexus core. It's a mythical device said to exist in both realities. We need to find it or risk annihilation. Mr. Whiskers, still in his philosopher persona, chimed in, My dear Felix, it appears we must embark on a quest. How delightful. He stretched like a regal feline, his fur catching the light. Felix glanced at his colleagues, people who had ridiculed him for years, and suddenly felt a sense of purpose. All right, let's save the universe. Just one quick question, where do we start? The hunt for the Nexus core began, and the entire university became a carnival of chaos. As Felix navigated the shifting realities, he encountered alternate versions of people he knew. There was a version of his best friend, Ben, who had become a successful motivational speaker but spoke entirely in metaphors involving cheese. Life is like a cheddar, my dude. Sometimes you just gotta be sharp. Each encounter added layers of hilarity and confusion. Felix found himself in a parallel library where books flew off the shelves and read themselves aloud. He chased down a particularly cheeky edition of Quantum Mechanics for Dummies, which insisted it was totally woke. As he struggled to catch the book, he bumped into a woman who looked oddly familiar, his ex-girlfriend, Sarah. Except in this universe, she was a bounty hunter with a taste for leather jackets and a very serious attitude. Felix, she said, rolling her eyes. You really think you can save the universe with your theories? Hey! I'm not just a theory. I'm a real person, he shot back, indignantly. Good luck with that. She smirked, her hand resting on the blaster at her hip. I'll be watching. And with that, she disappeared into the crowd, leaving Felix to contemplate just how ridiculous his life had become. As the dimensional merges continued, the university became a surreal landscape. A cafe served coffee brewed by sentient coffee beans who debated philosophy as they percolated. A nearby lab exploded with color as scientists attempted to harness the energy of the collision, creating sentient, singing beakers that belted out show tunes. Felix was both terrified and amused. Determined to find the Nexus core, Felix partnered with the alternate version of himself, Felix, the rock star. It turned out that in this universe, he had a band called the Quantum Quirks, and they were on the verge of their big break. Dude, we could totally use this energy surge to boost our music career. Felix exclaimed, strumming an invisible guitar. How about we save the universe first? Felix replied, but he couldn't help but crack a smile at his doppelganger's enthusiasm. They decided to team up, figuring that two Felixes might be better than one. Plus, the absurdity of it all was a welcome distraction from the impending doom. The duo navigated through bizarre realities, dodging strange creatures and existential puzzles. At one point, they found themselves trapped in a riddle presented by a giant talking potato who insisted they answer correctly before crossing a bridge made of rainbow spaghetti. Why did the scientist break up with their partner? The potato asked. Felix hesitated, glancing at his alternate self, who shrugged. Because they had too many problems? No. They had no chemistry, the potato boomed, laughing uproariously as they crossed the bridge, narrowly escaping a flood of marinara sauce. As their journey progressed, Felix realized that each version of himself brought unique strengths. While he excelled at theoretical physics, Felix had a natural charm that could talk anyone into or out of anything. They complemented each other perfectly. Eventually, they traced the Nexus core to a carnival-themed dimension, a place filled with whimsical rides and bizarre attractions. It was like stepping into a warped version of Disneyland, but instead of Mickey Mouse, the mascot was a floating head of Albert Einstein that cackled madly as it tossed candy at the guests. We're close. Felix shouted, pointing to a gleaming structure in the distance. That's got to be it. But as they approached, Sarah appeared again, flanked by her band of interdimensional bounty hunters, all looking very menacing. You thought you could just waltz in and take the Nexus core? Think again. She stepped forward, brandishing her blaster. Felix glanced at his doppelganger. I have a plan. Let's hear it. Distraction. Felix shouted as he lunged towards the carnival's cotton candy stand, grabbing a huge stick of sugary fluff and tossing it at the bounty hunters. The colorful cloud exploded in a sticky mess, temporarily blinding them. Now, grab the core. Felix shouted. They raced towards the Nexus core, a shimmering orb of swirling energy that pulsed with light. Just as they reached it, Felix's heart sank as he realized they weren't alone. Sarah was back on her feet, blaster aimed directly at them. Don't even think about it, she sneered. Listen, Sarah, we're not your enemies. Felix pleaded. This isn't about you and me. It's about saving two universes. She hesitated, confusion flickering in her eyes. Why would I help you? Because if we don't stop this, your universe, my universe, everything will cease to exist. You'll lose everything, Felix said, stepping forward. I know we had our issues, but I don't want to see you go. Felix, she said softly, her expression softening. You don't understand. I do understand. I understand that we're all fighting to survive in this crazy multiverse. There was a tense moment of silence, and then, unexpectedly, Mr. Whiskers appeared, perched regally on a nearby carnival ride. Indeed. It's all rather poetic, don't you think? Two universes colliding, two souls yearning for connection. Join forces, Sarah. Save the day. With a defeated sigh, Sarah lowered her blaster. Fine. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because I love my universe. And I'm curious to see how this plays out. Felix felt a mix of relief and disbelief. Together, they activated the nexus core. The energy surged around them, a vibrant glow enveloping the space, and the chaotic carnival began to fade. The dimensions were separating, and reality began to restore itself. As the worlds began to untangle, Felix and Sarah stood side by side, watching the swirling energies. So, what now? Sarah asked, her expression contemplative. Felix shrugged, glancing at the energy patterns. I suppose we go back to our realities. But maybe we can find a way to communicate? There are still so many questions. Sarah smiled slightly, a hint of nostalgia in her eyes. I'd like that. With a final surge, the Nexus core unleashed a blinding flash of light, and Felix found himself back in the lecture hall. Everything was eerily normal, except for Mr. Whiskers, who had returned to his feline form, licking his paws with an air of satisfaction. Welcome back, Dr. Klein, Rachel said, looking at him skeptically. Did you learn anything? Felix grinned, excitement bubbling within him. You have no idea. There's so much more out there than we can comprehend. And also, I think I need to get a cat harness for Mr. Whiskers. The students around him chuckled, some still in disbelief at what had transpired. Felix couldn't help but feel a rush of pride. He had faced down a chaotic collision of realities and emerged with new understanding, new allies, and, most importantly, a newfound confidence. As he stood at the podium, he began to draft a plan for a new research project, possibly involving interdimensional communication. All right, everyone. How about we explore the concept of love across parallel universes? Laughter erupted again, and Felix felt a surge of joy. The universe might be a strange, chaotic place, but he was ready to embrace it. And just as he settled into his thoughts, the lights flickered once more, and the air shimmered ominously. Felix raised an eyebrow, smirking as he looked at Mr. Whiskers. Looks like our adventures aren't over yet. Indeed. Mr. Whiskers replied, stretching luxuriously. Shall we see what the cosmos has in store for us next? Felix laughed, knowing one thing for sure, the multiverse was bound to be as unpredictable as it was infinite, and he was ready for every twist and turn it might bring. Felix chuckled as he watched Mr. Whiskers lounge back on his desk, completely unfazed by the flickering lights. All right, buddy, what do you think? Another interdimensional crisis, or just a glitch in the system? The cat looked at him with an expression that combined wisdom and mischief. With the multiverse, Felix, it's always a little of both. But I suspect it's something more this time. Have you noticed how the energy feels different? Felix leaned back in his chair, reflecting on the hum in the air. He could sense it, an almost electric charge that buzzed at the edges of his consciousness. You might be right. Something is off. Let's investigate. He grabbed his notepad, ready to jot down any thoughts that came to him. As he headed toward the door, the lights flickered once more, and he could have sworn he heard a distant sound, like laughter. It was a child's laughter, light and joyful, echoing through the corridor. Did you hear that? Felix asked Mr. Whiskers, of course. It seems our delightful friends from another dimension might be trying to reach out, Mr. Whiskers replied, leaping off the desk with a grace that belied his hefty form. Felix opened the door, and the corridor stretched out before him, illuminated by the sporadic flickering of lights. Students wandered around, some glancing at him with confusion. They were blissfully unaware of the chaos that had nearly unraveled their universe just moments ago. He followed the sound of laughter, curiosity propelling him forward. As he turned a corner, he stumbled upon a gathering of students staring at a shimmering portal that hovered in midair, swirling with vibrant colors. The laughter grew louder, and Felix felt a tug in his chest. Something was beckoning him. "Is that?" he muttered, taking a cautious step closer. "It appears to be an interdimensional rift," Mr. Whiskers said, padding beside him. "I dare say this is a very special one." Felix squinted at the portal. "But why now? Why here?" Suddenly, a small figure burst through the portal, a girl, no more than 8 years old, with wild, curly hair and a grin that lit up the dim corridor. She wore a brightly colored dress that seemed to ripple as if it were made from the fabric of the multiverse itself. "Hi," she exclaimed, her voice a cheerful chime. "I'm Lila. I've come to play." Felix blinked, momentarily taken aback. "Play? Here? In the middle of a dimensional crisis?" "Yes. It's not a crisis. It's a party," she shouted, her laughter infectious. The students around Felix began to smile, some even chuckling at her enthusiasm, but Felix started, looking back at the portal, which was still swirling with energy. "What's going on?" Lila waved her hands dismissively. "It's fine. We're all friends here. I just wanted to show you something." The portal flickered, and Felix felt a strange pull toward it, an inexplicable urge to step inside. "What do you want to show us?" "Come on," Lila exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "It's a surprise." Against his better judgment, Felix took a step toward the portal, glancing at Mr. Whiskers. "What do you think?" "Childlike wonder is often a harbinger of great adventures," Mr. Whiskers replied sagely. "Shall we?" Felix took a deep breath, steeling himself for whatever awaited him on the other side. With one last glance back at the bewildered students, he stepped through the portal, Lila tugging at his sleeve. On the other side, Felix found himself in a whimsical landscape, unlike anything he had ever seen. Cotton candy clouds floated in a pastel sky, and the ground was soft, resembling a giant trampoline. Lila bounced happily, her laughter ringing out like music. "Welcome to Funland," she announced, spinning around. "Here, we play games and have adventures." Felix couldn't help but smile. "This is amazing. But how did you create this place?" Lila giggled. "I didn't. This is a world that exists in between the universes. I can open portals because I'm special." As he watched her dance and leap, Felix's heart swelled with a mix of joy and nostalgia. It reminded him of the untainted magic of childhood, a stark contrast to the heavy responsibilities he often carried as a physicist. "Do you want to play a game?" Lila asked, bouncing closer. "Sure. What do you have in mind?" "Let's play tag," she shouted, her excitement palpable. "But with a twist. If you get tagged, you have to share a secret." Felix laughed. "All right, but I warn you, I'm pretty fast." With that, Lila took off, her laughter trailing behind her like a song. Felix chased after her, reveling in the freedom of the moment, the burdens of the universe momentarily forgotten. As they played, the landscape shifted around them, morphing into a vibrant forest filled with oversized flowers that giggled when brushed against. He could hear the whispers of trees, urging him to let go of his worries, to embrace the joy of the game. After a while, Felix finally caught Lila, tagging her lightly on the shoulder. Gotcha. She spun around, feigning surprise. You got me. Now, what's your secret? Felix thought for a moment, a playful grin spreading across his face. Okay, I once tried to invent a device to communicate with my cat, and I accidentally made him a talking philosopher instead. Lila burst into laughter, clapping her hands. That's a great secret. Okay, my turn. She tagged him back, and Felix couldn't remember the last time he had laughed so freely. As they continued to play, Felix felt the weight of responsibility lifting, replaced by a lightness he hadn't experienced in ages, but soon, the laughter began to fade, and Felix noticed a ripple in the vibrant landscape. The colors dulled, and the cheerful sounds started to distort, becoming ominous. Lila's smile wavered, and she looked around, confusion crossing her face. What's happening? Felix asked, concern creeping in. I don't know. Lila exclaimed. It's not supposed to be like this. Before he could react, a shadow loomed over them, darkening the landscape. Felix turned to see a figure emerging from the edge of the forest, a tall, menacing creature with sharp features and an aura of darkness. You shouldn't be here, it hissed, its voice like gravel. This realm is not for your kind. Felix felt a chill run down his spine. We're just playing. We mean no harm. Lila stepped closer to Felix, clutching his hand. We just wanted to have fun. The creature laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the trees. Fun is a luxury you cannot afford. The balance is disrupted. You must leave. Felix felt a surge of defiance. No. This place is special, and so are we. We can help fix the balance. The creature's eyes narrowed, considering him. Help? How do you propose to do that? By restoring joy and playfulness, Felix said, surprising himself with his own conviction. By reminding this place of its purpose. If we can unite the worlds with laughter and games, maybe we can mend the rift that threatens both our realities. The creature hesitated, uncertainty flickering across its face. You think laughter can restore balance? Absolutely, Felix replied. Let us show you. With a flick of his wrist, he conjured an image of the university, the students, and the laughter that had filled the halls. Everywhere, people find joy in the simplest of things. We can bring that here. Lila piped up, her small voice steady. And we can all play together. It'll be fun. The creature's expression softened ever so slightly, intrigued by their determination. Very well. Show me your games. Felix exchanged a glance with Lila, and together they began to orchestrate a series of games, tag, hide and seek, and even silly dances. As they played, the dark aura surrounding the creature began to dissipate, colors brightening around them. Other beings emerged from the shadows, curious about the commotion. Felix and Lila encouraged everyone to join in, and soon, the clearing was filled with laughter, joy, and a sense of community. The creature transformed, its sharp features softening into something resembling a smile. Perhaps there is merit in this, laughter. With each game, the rift began to heal, the shadows retreating. The landscape blossomed back into its vibrant colors, and Felix felt the energy of the multiverse shifting, becoming lighter, more harmonious. As the sun began to set in this fantastical world, casting a warm glow over the revelry, Felix took a moment to catch his breath. Lila bounced over to him, her face radiant with joy. We did it, Felix. We really did. Yes, we did, he agreed, feeling a swell of pride. But I think we're not finished yet. We still have to close the rift. Lila's eyes sparkled with excitement. Let's do it together. Felix nodded, and they gathered everyone around the now vibrant portal. All right, everyone. We need to channel all the joy and laughter we can muster. Let's create a wave of positivity to seal the rift. With Lila leading the charge, the group began to chant and laugh, their voices merging into a harmonious chorus. Felix felt a wave of warmth surge through him, connecting everyone in a shared purpose. As their laughter grew, the portal pulsed with energy, colors swirling around them, brighter and brighter. Keep it going. Felix shouted, pouring his heart into the moment. The creature, now transformed by the experience, stepped forward. I will assist. Laughter is powerful indeed. As they united their energies, a brilliant light erupted from the portal, a whirlwind of colors swirling together until, with a final burst of joy, the rift began to close, sealing both worlds in harmony. Felix and Lila collapsed onto the ground, breathless but exhilarated. Around them, the landscape glimmered, more vibrant than ever. The creature smiled down at them, gratitude in its eyes. You have restored balance. Thank you. Felix beamed. We all did it together. That's the magic of community. Lila jumped to her feet, her voice filled with excitement. Can we come back? This place is amazing. The creature nodded. You are always welcome here, as long as you carry laughter in your hearts. As the portal shimmered in the background, Felix felt a sense of closure, but also a hint of longing. I guess it's time for us to return home. Lila's expression turned thoughtful. Will it be different when we go back? Felix smiled gently. Every adventure changes us, Lila. We carry the memories and the joy with us. They stepped through the portal, hand in hand, returning to the familiar sight of the university hallway. The vibrant colors of Funland faded behind them, but the laughter lingered in the air. The students were still gathered around, staring in awe at the now closed portal. Felix turned to them, excitement bubbling within him. You won't believe what just happened. And as he began to recount the adventure, laughter erupted once more. Felix knew that while the multiverse might be unpredictable, they had the power to shape their reality through joy, creativity, and a willingness to embrace the absurd. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the campus, Felix felt a renewed sense of purpose. He had faced down chaos and emerged with stories to tell, friends to cherish, and an understanding that the universe, with all its mysteries, could be navigated through the simplest of joys. Mr. Whiskers, what's next? Felix asked, grinning at his furry companion. Mr. Whiskers, with an air of wisdom that only a cat could possess, replied, whatever it is, it's bound to be quite the adventure. And with that, Felix knew his journey was far from over. The multiverse awaited, filled with laughter, wonder, and the promise of more extraordinary escapades. And so, as the laughter echoed through the hallways of the university, the story of Dr. Felix Klein continued, ready for whatever whimsical twist awaited him next.